Welcome to Investor Evolution Elevate. Whether you're looking to create financial freedom, reclaim your time, or find harmony while you're thriving in your career, this show is for you. Join me each week as we uncover strategies to grow your wealth, nurture your personal development, and elevate your life to new heights so you can live with purpose, joy, and confidence. Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast today. I cannot wait to share with you my special guest today. Aaron Kim is the kind of guest who reminds us that there is no limit to where you can go. He is a father, a husband, a real estate investor, business owner, and speaker. But beyond all the titles is a story of grit and growth and gratitude. From his immigrant roots to his time in the restaurant world to stepping into this crazy world of entrepreneurship, Aaron calls himself a recovering underachiever, but now he is thriving as a leader in real estate and funding strategies. When he is not structuring deals, you can find him practicing martial arts, making homemade wine, and exploring the outdoors with his kiddos. Today, we are going beyond business to uncover the mindset and mission behind the man. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. What a great intro.
I've been looking forward to this for quite a while, and I've known you for the past year, and we are in a group together. We get to talk about all the things in this entrepreneurship world, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I love that you come in and give this real world perspective. And so I want to take this time to really dive into you a little bit more. I want to share you with the world in maybe a little bit different light. We'll talk about business, but I want to talk about you. I was on a Zoom the other day and this lady kept saying, I'm not a one-celled amoeba. I have all these other interests. So we'll focus on business a little bit, but I want to know like the breadth and the depth that is your life. So let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit more about where you came from. So you're the son of immigrants who came to this country. I want to hear that story because it's so powerful. We were talking earlier and just hearing that story is fascinating.
Yeah. So my parents, I'm Korean, and my father was a surveyor for Hyundai for a long period of time. So he would work overseas a lot. And so he would be involved in constructing bridges in different areas for Hyundai. And what had happened was he wanted to build a new life for us. And so he decided to immigrate to the States in the mid 70s. Then he actually couldn't find a job as a surveyor here. So he decided that he was going to go into carpentry. And so he worked for a company called Chilter System. And so, as a young child, I would watch my dad build things, and it was a good learning experience for me. And then when I got into around elementary school, he kind of graduated to starting his own business, opening up restaurants, having grocery stores, and, that kind of almost typical Asian kind of background, right? It's like laundromats, dry cleaners, groceries, delis, or you're like a real scholar. Yeah, you're into the academia, right? My father was always the American dream, and my mother supported him the whole way, right? And they thought that, owning a business and having that white picket fence, owning your own home, and wanted to provide an easier lifestyle for my sister and I.
And as I was sharing with you earlier, the thing that I find so fascinating about that is he had this profession in Korea and he was traveling the world doing this surveying and then came to the US and had to essentially restart. What lessons have you taken from that for your own entrepreneurial journey?
So it really taught me that there are zero excuses for me to give up. And I think that's where a lot of my grit came from. If you were to ask anybody, especially my wife always gets on me for this. It's how come you never give up on anything? Sometimes you gotta let stuff go. But for me, I stick through it, and I always want to make sure that either I learn something or I fix the problem or solve whatever issue that I'm having before I move on. And that's heavily, heavily based on what my parents, the values of my parents kind of branded into us as children, that,
Mhm.
life is tough. No one cares if it's hard. And so you always have to do your best and put in the extra work. And there's a saying that we have in our family, like Kims, we don't give up. And so I always tell my children, hey, you're a Kim, you do not give up. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to quit.
I'm going to adopt that for me. Kim's don't give up. I'm going to adopt that. That's awesome. And what a good lesson that your dad taught you. Now you're turning around and teaching your children. Now, were you working in these businesses with your family as well growing up? So you're going to school and working in these businesses?
Yeah, so define working because I call it child labor.
I was gonna say, were you paid? Probably not.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as I can remember, I was always like stocking shelves or at the register, and so I was really forced to learn what that felt like. So I was always helping with like paperwork. I was always helping on the weekends. I didn't have the luxury of going and doing a sleepover or playing outside. I did some of the times, but a lot of the times it was okay. If you finished all your work, let's go. Let's come with me, and I'll show you what we do, and kind of learn from the bottom up.
Yeah. And I know you were in the restaurant industry for a while as well. Did you own restaurants in addition to also working in your families?
Yeah, so we had the opportunity to open up multiple restaurants from scratch, and we sold some. And so in the process, yes, I've worked front of house, back of house, prep, line, you name it, I did it. Because one of the other things that and I have an older sister, and she and I always knew that we had one big rule is we have to be really good at everything in the restaurant business, because we weren't going to let employees like take us hostage, because that can happen very easily if you depend too much on your employees. So what we did was we created systems, and we made sure we took all the brain work out of it. If you know what I mean, we like took all that out of it, and so it was a system where it could be replicated and can be retaught really quick. And so I was always better at like the point of sale at the cash register than anybody else. I was always better than any line cook or prep cook, because I would be there, in the back training or teaching them how to organize and labeling things, and learning how to do first in, first out. If you're in the, restaurant business, that's like a cardinal rule, right? So yeah, it was a lot of that. So yes.
Man, and what I see is this parallel, right, between growing up, working in the businesses, starting your own stuff with the restaurants, all that learning that you were doing and that experience gaining along the way obviously translated into incredible skills for entrepreneurship. Now, did you work in any other capacity? Did you ever have a W-2, or has it always been owning businesses? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I worked with the federal government for a little bit, and then I had a couple of startups that I sold. And then I actually came back to the restaurant business after college just to help my family out. They needed help. And then along the way, my sister and I, we started to acquire some rental properties, and we've always knew that the next step for us is, okay, now you're in a business, where are you going to park your capital, right? So our next vision was to own properties, and so it kind of naturally went that way. And about 18 months before COVID, my parents kind of sold everything, and we were
Wow.
able to retire them. So it was a good time for us.
Oh, that's incredible, because obviously we know what happened with the pandemic for restaurants particularly, and how devastating that was. So fantastic that you were able to retire them, and or they were able to retire, however that is worded, and take care of them in that way. That's powerful. So when you came into real estate, you said you had some rentals. Did you feel like you were just going to stay on the passive side, or how did you jump into this more active side of real estate?
That's a great question. I'm still like on my journey to kind of figure that out. I'm not gonna lie to you. But my first kind of rental fell into my lap like 2008, 2009, when the first crash happened.
Yeah.
And I was super blessed. I was able to like grow out a portfolio, and it's been just really great. The rates were really low.
Mhm.
People were doing ninja loans, and I was like, nah, I'm not going to go that way. And I was able to kind of acquire these properties, leveraging the first property and kind of putting more money down and using the capital that I had. So, in about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, um, I knew I wanted to get into some sort of like transactional funding because I knew it was a quick turnaround and it was pretty safe, but I didn't know how to do that, right? I didn't know if there was like legal requirements. I didn't know if I had to get licenses and all that kind of thing. So I stumbled upon the Gator method with Pace. And once you start looking that stuff up, everybody starts popping up, right? The
Right.
Deans, Chris Crone, like all those folks. And the Gator method kind of appealed to me because it was a good framework and it had some of the paperwork I was looking for. So it kind of pointed me in the right direction. And it was a good platform for me to kind of mold it. So it kind of fit my personality a little bit better.
So let's talk about that because hearing your story, you have done a lot, you've learned a lot, you've grown a lot, you've tried different businesses, you got into real estate, and then you said transactional lending fits you because, as I know, you are a low risk person. Why? Tell me why that is. I feel like you have so much knowledge and you've done so much, and tell me where that comes from.
So I'm really risk averse for a couple different reasons because I guess it's cultural for me.
Okay.
It's a lot of it is, get good grades, go to a good college, have a steady job, so everything's stable,
Mhm.
right? On the other hand, I saw my father move to a different country. There's a language barrier, and he overcame it. And so I knew if I wanted to be successful, financially successful in any sort of capacity, I was going to need to take risks, right? And I didn't know how to take those kind of risks and still be successful. So it was lots of learning and trying different things. And real estate, I could wrap my brain around. And so I figured if I can like fund these transactions and if I can kind of secure it in a way that I can sleep at night, then this is what I want to do. Um, and it was interesting because marketing myself was the hardest thing. And so I had to really understand what marketing was versus advertising. And in the real estate business, there's a saying, right? You do business with people you like, and you trust, right? And you have to be able to sell yourself. For me, it was the total opposite. And so I don't know if you know this about me, but we've talked about me being an ambivert, right? And I'm very introverted. And why I say that is because I I get drained if I do too much. Like if I socialize a lot, I need to go recharge, right? Now, I would kind of describe that as an introvert as opposed to an extrovert where they get recharged because they're socializing and interacting with people. But I figured out while I was in the restaurant business that I had the gift of gab. And so when I'm like in my element and I'm around people that I like I can talk my way into or out of almost anything. Um, and and that really helped. That confidence, that inner confidence really helped because what I learned to do was I was 1,000% confident in the product and services that I was able to provide. And so I could lead with that. And it was these are my services. This is how I can help. These are the problems that I can solve for you. And I was so confident in that I could just turn around and walk away. And so it was very organic. It was really genuine. And I think that resonated with a lot of folks.
Well, and it's interesting because you said you had a gift for being the cashier or the sales, whatever. What did you call it? For
At the
your
point of sale,
the
yeah.
point of sale, I guess. Yes, thank you. That you had this ability to do well in that spot. Which for when you said that, I was thinking, I know that you talk about being an ambivert, and so it was kind of interesting to hear that. And I think there's this scale of ambivert because I can do the extrovert for a while also, but I can do it probably longer than you can, and then I'm like, okay, I'm peopled out. I'm good. I always say that my love language is quality alone time. Like I just need that time. Another thing you've talked about is, and tell me if it's okay to go here, but you've talked about some of that social anxiety that you've had. How do you feel like you've overcome that, especially in this place where you do have to put yourself out there and lead with you?
So a couple things. I'm not naturally really detail oriented. So being in the restaurant industry really taught me that I had to develop skills that I didn't wasn't naturally like gifted with, right? And so being detail oriented, I learned that in the restaurant business. And that really helped me in growing my business in a way that I felt comfortable because I it really eased my anxiety. So by being more detail oriented and making checklists and making sure I did my research, that really helped. And I really believe in being good at one thing. And so I decided if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be really good at it. I'm going to do it on my terms, and that really helped me get over that kind of anxiety part. And anxiety is like it never really goes away. You can always work on it. You can always like control it, hopefully, but it's not something that just disappears. So I'm always working on it. And so it's how do I cope? How do I ease into this? So there's a lot of strategies behind what I do. Before I do, big events, or I try not to do big events, or if I come on to, podcast with a friend, I know I want to bring good energy, and I do preparation beforehand.
Gotcha. Well, and I know for Squad Up, you helped our group really prepare and get our pitch, our elevator pitch ready. So it just shows that it's funny that you say you're not naturally detail oriented. You keep giving me these conundrums of you because you are very detail oriented now, but I see what you're saying is you've put these systems into place, these checks and balances as a method, right? And following that just makes it simpler and easier. Um, okay, so I one of the things that I think is so cool about you, it feels as though, okay, we were on this natural path to become an entrepreneur. But is that really true? Is that the path that you were on when you went to college? Is that what you wanted to do? Or was this a little bit of a curveball?
It was a curveball. So when I finished high school, it was my parents said, listen, you can either start a business, continue on to college, or go into the military. They said, pick one. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school since you're willing to pay for it.
Right.
And so I studied psychology and legal studies and had a minor in music. And so I was kind of just all over the place. So no, it wasn't always my plan. I wanted to be a lots of different things, and I'm still trying to figure it out. What is this a means to an end, or an end to a means? I don't know yet, but I'm really happy with the lifestyle that I have now because it gives me tremendous amount of flexibility to spend with my children and with my family. And so that's number one on my priority list is how much quality time can I spend with my family and still maintain this quality of life that I have.
I love that. So psychology, legal studies, and then a minor in music. Is that correct? Okay. Tell me about the minor in music. Were you a singer? Was it instruments? What does that mean? I don't even know.
Yeah, I was an opera singer for a long time.
Oh,
No,
yes, that is so
no,
amazing.
no,
Come on.
no, no. I played saxophone, and I did some production stuff. So a lot of like producing music, understanding theory, and lots of like jazz. So that was kind of like my area that I really kind of dug my feet into.
Okay, so we can find you in a jazz bar. Okay, I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. Okay, and then tell us about psychology. So psychology and legal studies. I assume there's definitely a connection with that. Why did you choose psychology?
It was something I was always interested in. I always, in the back of my head, I always would play these games. I'm like, I wonder what makes this person tick.
Mm.
I wonder what makes that person behave in this kind of way.
Mhm.
Because I've always had the personality of how do I control this situation? Like, how do I build wisdom with each experience, right? And so I thought that was the most powerful thing. It's knowing what to do in any situation. And that's really hard to build. And so I kind of tried to reverse engineer it. And so if I know how people, like what makes people tick, you can kind of figure out or predict how people are going to behave.
Yeah.
And based on that, I can kind of, choose
Behavior.
my, my behaviors in a way that I can kind of coast through that situation.
Interesting. Do you think growing up, you were probably in the restaurant when you were little, and do you think that's where you started watching people and seeing how adults interacted and that?
Yeah. So I was a people watcher, right? Like I love to see like what I could sit at an airport and just watch people, right? Like how
Yeah.
they speak, what they were doing, how they interact, what they're eating. And like I would make up little stories. I'm like, oh, I know what kind of person that is, right? It's like it's fun to people watch.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you get a sense of the person. You have a way to interact with them before you've even talked with them because you've been observant. So you say you're not detail oriented, but I'm going to object to that. Okay, so this is why I was so excited to chat with you because you have just this diversity within your life, which we all do, and sometimes we forget that we do so many things and we are so many things and we're not just a one lane. Now, you're great at transactional lending and that is your one thing that you focus on, which is awesome and you are amazing at that. But you also make wine. You have a yard full of chickens. You and do remind me, you coach baseball for your son or no?
I used to, not
Oh,
anymore. He's at an age where he needs professionals coaching him.
right, right.
Yeah.
You're involved in martial arts. You have all this diverse background. Like again, as we all do, but we forget that all of that comes together to make us who we are. So on a Saturday in the summer, where can we find you? What are the things that you're doing with your family around the house? What does a day in the life of Aaron Kim look like?
Waking up bright and early,
Mhm.
feed the chickens, make sure they have food and water, right? Then I'd probably go out to the pool with the kids because they probably have like a swim team thing going on. Maybe I'll be, at a baseball tournament with my son. Um, and like food is really big. It's like the Korean culture and the Italian culture, like very similar.
Okay.
Like the first thing my mom asked me, like if when I walk into her house, she's like, "Did you eat?" Not hi, hello. She was like, "Did you eat?" And I'll say, "Not yet." And the first thing she does is shove food in my face, right? So it's like maybe a barbecue, sitting outside, just talking to friends and catching up. But yeah, that's kind of like an ideal situation, or maybe at the beach. If I could spend my day at the beach and be a beach bum, like that's great.
You're there. You're there. How did you get into winemaking? Where did that come from? Was it from the restaurant?
No, so the story with winemaking. So I make traditional Korean rice wine,
Okay.
and so it's strange because technically, if you start with a grain and you make alcohol, it's considered a beer. But this is the fermentation process. It's a little bit different, and so it's a simultaneous multi-level like fermentation process, and so it's considered a wine. Okay, even though you start with a grain. I was never really into it until I was an adult, like an adult, and I would hear, my parents talk about it, talk about their friends trying to making and failing, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I bet I can make this.
Challenge
Um,
accepted.
yeah, exactly. On top of that, as I got older, like I clung closer to my Korean roots.
Okay.
So the food was more important. Like my identity kind of really solidified because I learned to embrace my Korean culture a little bit more. And so it was part of it's like the food, the language, the endearments. It's all of it like was so it's a legacy that I want to leave to my children. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to try making this. And lots of YouTube videos later and a trip to Korea to check out all the wineries and breweries and distilleries and such. Um, I started experimenting with it. And because I learned to be detail oriented, I was able to figure out where other people failed.
Got
And
it.
so I was able to figure out like the humidity, the temperature, learning how to ferment it in a proper way and all the little things that comes with brewery. And so, yeah, that's how that came to life. And I've been making it for like what, 5 or 6 years now.
Okay. How long was it in that process of learning from when you first started to where you were like, okay, I've got my process, I can repeat it. How long was that?
It took me probably 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, about 6 months or so
Okay.
because it's a quick brew, but
Okay.
you can ferment it for as long as you want. And so it just, the flavor just gets more and more complex. And
Okay.
so it's how you want to kind of, make the flavor profile. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long for you is like the perfect fermentation time?
So it's about 10 to 12 days because what it does is you have a slight bit of carbonation
Uh-huh.
and it still has a little bit of residual sweetness
Okay.
from when it turns to sugar.
Yeah.
And so that time frame is really good. And then, you have to there's three different versions of it. You can have it totally unfiltered. You can have it like completely clarified, or you can have the really thick part, right? The almost everything that settles to the sediment that kind of settles to the bottom. And so I really like the clarified bit because it tastes really clean. It tastes fresh, almost lemony, almost
Okay.
like pear-like. And so in the yeast that I use kind of lends to that floral, fruity flavor. So that's kind of the sweet spot for me.
All right. Next year, let's go it up. You're bringing the wine.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you feel like how old are your kiddos?
12 and 8.
12 and 8. Okay. Mine are right above yours. I'm 10 and 14 is where mine are. So
Mhm.
we still got that 4-year span. But do you feel like as they're growing up, that's why you want to make sure you're really bringing in your Korean roots so that they know their heritage? Do you feel like that really contributed to it?
Yeah, because, like my culture's foreign, you know what I mean? They have the rest of their lives to kind of build, I certainly want them to have my wife's, culture as well, right? Her family's like Pennsylvania Dutch. So, that's I want them to experience that, but at the same time, I want them to have the Eastern part, right?
Yeah.
And learn with that. And it's important to know both parts. I think it's important for you to know where you come from and what it means.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you said when we were talking before we started recording was that it took you a while to figure out you. And so tell us that journey. What do you think has helped you really harness your true essence? And how do you feel like you are helping your kids with that?
Good question. So it's a long process and it's still going on for me. So like the identity crisis for young Asian males is really difficult. So I know there's a high suicide rate with
Uh-huh.
Asian males because especially here in America, because number one, they have certain stereotypes and stigmas to them. And so they have a hard time socializing, finding partners, and finding their place in the American culture and society. Um, and so as a young child, like I grew up in the like 80s and 90s, right? I'm that old. But I felt like it was easier for me because it was a bit more harsh. And so those lessons that I learned early on helped me kind of find my identity a little bit easier. So it was lots of relearning
Mhm.
that who I wasn't before I got to, oh, this is who I am. So kind of understanding where my culturally Korean morals and values aligned with my American values and how that, how I existed within that realm
Mhm.
was just lots of time, lots of like self-reflection and just learning who I wasn't over and over and over again. And to getting to a point where I got super comfortable in my own skin. And that's when I really developed and polished like my gift of gab. Like I can, once I get into a certain thing and I'm in my element, yeah, it's really easy for me.
Did you feel like there were a lot of shoulds? I should do this, I should do that. And was that part of the things that you had to take off maybe to really come into your own skin?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about that. I had those moments today, oh, I should have did this. I should have did that.
Yeah.
Um, if you if you live in the shoulda coulda woulda like in that realm, you're missing opportunities in front of you, and that's easier said than done. And I get it, right? But really leaning into, okay, so this is who I am today. Where do I want to go? What, and how do I conduct myself in a way that I feel proud and my children and my family, are proud of me. It is kind of like where my thought is. And yeah, it's a tough thing. So lots of like, I should have did this, I should have did that. I stopped doing that because it just it that monster of
Mhm.
anxiety and self-doubt grows and that just feeds it.
Yeah.
So it was learning to kind of detach.
Yeah.
That was a lot of it growing up.
Absolutely. What are some of the things, so your kids are 8 and 12, what are some of the lessons, the morals, the like what do you want them to catch from you when I think those lessons are caught not taught. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that are taught, but you caught a lot from your parents. You caught this entrepreneurship, you caught this hard work of digging in and not giving up. What are those things that you want to make sure when your kids leave for college or leave for a business or the military? What do you want them to get from you?
Number one, I want to teach them how to find happiness.
Yeah.
That's and to stay healthy, right? And so I think that number one, I had a hard time with like learning that happiness is more of an attitude and an approach than anything else. So I want to teach my children that. I don't want to teach them, all of the anxiety and the baggage that I had growing up. I want them to be prepared.
Yeah.
I want them to know that hard work is okay. And usually things that, that are rewarding is hard, but there's nothing you can't ever figure out. Nothing's ever not figure outable.
Yeah.
It is
Right,
kind of,
exactly.
um, that and then not to give up, because, failing is okay. Certain mistakes you just can't make, but it's okay to make all those other mistakes. And I'd rather have them make those smaller mistakes now and learn from it than make, bigger mistakes later where it has more effect on you. And
Yeah,
so
they,
I think that's where I want to, kind of those are the lessons other than, where you came from and being kind, all the normal things, right?
of course.
Everybody has those, that average, those morals and values, but really teaching them to be like take care of themselves and like learning how to be happy is important for me.
Yeah, I love that. Let's switch gears and let's talk about your business. One of the things I truly appreciate about you, and you said it the other day on our call, is that you have a high standard of excellence. And I see it in all that you do, and I appreciate that. Um, you've started this business. When did you get into Gator?
Like 22 or 23. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you came into it wanting to do transactional lending, and you have done an incredible job of getting that business started. Tell us what that process has been like. I'm sure it was like super easy for you and you just like clicked right away. Tell us a little bit about that process.
I wish that's how it happened. Like that would be
Same.
great. Yeah. No, it was difficult. It was, I got into that space and I realized that I sucked at it. And I sucked at it because I hated the almost fake interaction you needed to have to kind of grow out your clientele. And so I had to figure out how to market. I had to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And so it was 6 or 7 months of like really understanding how to market myself, like building those relationships and building those lists of different people and spending some money and talking to a lot of attorneys. Like, this is what I'm trying to do. And here's what I have. Like, how do I, can you help me? Can you, revise and review these documents for me? And so there was a lot of that happened. And because of my like high anxious like tendencies, it really helped me do like the preventative stuff.
Yeah.
So it was, I had to, if you want to do the things that you really want to do, you got to do the stuff you don't want to do first. It's just the fact of life, right? You got to do all the homework first before you can go play, right? So I think that took about 6 or 7 months to really do all the homework and get some sort of system down. So I could replicate it and just have less holes because I knew that things were going to come up. But if you don't have some sort of plan going in, I would just crumble, with my anxiety. So
What I hear is all of these values and things that you've been taught, right? You got to do the hard work. You got to do the hard work before you get to play. You have to create those systems and that structure first, building those relationships, understanding people is huge, having those systems in place, and then making it repeatable, scalable, and that. Where would you, when you think about moving forward and as you're growing your business, where do you see yourself in the next 12 months, 24 months? Are you building this machine to grow it? Are you branching out into different areas?
great question. So I'm probably going to continue to do a certain number of like transactional funding deals, but I'm going to start branching out and doing more workshops for folks and more speaking engagements, maybe some coaching and some trainings. So, I define coaching as like asking more questions and figuring out, where people want to be. And then training is like more tactical, right? It's like, you need to use this strategy and this strategy. This is how you get to where you want to go. So I might do a little bit of both, but I really do think that in the real estate world right now, in the community that we're in, there's a lot of shiny object syndrome. There's a lot of holes in like the education. And if I can help like really give people like a cheat code, like a game genie like thing that they can kind of elevate their game a little bit, faster. I think I would love to do that. And although like I'm an introvert, like interacting with people in person and doing like these live workshops, that really makes me feel good. I get immediate feedback. I can have like, banter back and forth. I can have, just fun moments and just the genuine like connection with people and that which I really enjoy. And so I think if I can help and have that at the same time, it's a win-win.
Right. Well, and it's helpful because you've walked that path before. You know those pitfalls that people are going to come across. You know what those stumbling blocks are. And when you can help them see it ahead, have a plan for it, and help them move their business forward, that's amazing. And I'm excited to see how that grows for you because I think it'll be quite powerful. Everyone that I've talked to in the community who knows your name, I was telling a friend today, I was like, oh, I got an interview today with Aaron Kim. He's like, oh my gosh, this guy is amazing. And I know you may not think that, but you are making an impact in this community in in ways that I think you don't see. And I just want to reflect that back to you that it's not this big boisterous thing that some people have. It is this quiet consistency of growth that you have put in the work and it just continues to move forward. And that's, I think, what is super attractive about what you offer and the things that you're working on, because it's proven, right? It's proven practices. It's put in the work, and I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm excited for the impact that you're going to make in this community. So thank you so much for that.
Oh my goodness, that's so kind of you. This is recorded, right? I'm gonna keep you in my pocket. So every time I feel not so great, I'm just gonna play it.
Yeah, if you're like, I should, you're like, nope, I'm listening. I'm listening to that. As we kind of are coming to a close, I know we can talk about a lot of different things. And you mentioned like these little tidbits of things that I'm like, oh, I want to go down that rabbit trail. Like, focus. You talked a little bit about nutrition. That's one of the things that you want to make sure being healthy and happy with your kids is something you want to instill with them. We talked a little bit about the winemaking. You have this whole other realm of martial arts. I guess what is a fun fact? We've talked about a lot of fun facts, but what is another fun fact about Aaron Kim that none of us would ever guess or know about you? Maybe something you've done or something that you do now.
Let me see. Is it a surprise that I'm 6 foot tall? So for everyone who doesn't know, I'm 6 foot tall, and yes, I'm Korean. So you know, maybe me and Yao Ming, right?
That's right. That's a good one. And it's so fantastic when we do get together as a community and we get to meet all these people that we've met on Zoom and compare our like mental image with the actual image. So that always is a fun thing as well. Is there any special projects that you're working on? Obviously, with building out some curriculum and some workshops is one of the things that you're working on in the community. Is there anything else that you're working on right now that's just for you? That's just for fun?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I've always wanted to go back into music, so maybe I might dive back into that as the children get older. But the other thing I wanted to do is, and kind of involves the business, is I want to travel more. And so as hopefully I can kind of build, this machine out where I can travel and do speaking engagements. And if I can travel with my wife, and do these like speaking engagements, I think that would be so much fun. And I think that's kind of what I'm going towards.
Okay, I love that. All right, everyone, if you need a speaker, Aaron Kim is the man. I think that's a fantastic way to share your knowledge, and you have such a presence about you to be able to take complicated things and break them down into manageable steps, right? Those bite-sized steps to put it into practice. So I think you will do well with that. Anything else?
I have two bits of advice for someone who wants to maybe are in business or starting a business. How's that?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's end with that.
So I would say don't ever run your business to win over someone else's approval. Once you start kind of stretching out to win other people's approval, that's when your processes and the people that are around you, that's when you're going to start to hurt yourself. So that's one.
Yeah.
Um so here's the other thing. Like, I am a super loyal person. And so, like, I like to have, like, just the quality relationship with and long-term, like, friendships and stuff. But I've learned in business that you need to be loyal to your own values, not to people. Because I'm so loyal, that I've been loyal to people that maybe I shouldn't have been, and I've been burned. And
Mm.
so that was a tough lesson that I needed to learn. So being more loyal to my values and my morals than to some people.
Yeah. And is there a way that you like, do you have a gauge, a monitor, a reflection that you do to make sure you're staying in check with that?
Oh, it's mostly like a gut feeling.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I always trust my gut. If I If I think something's off, then I really think about, all the things that happen and all the things that could happen. And
Mhm.
then I kind of sit there and kind of assess how I'm going to go about doing things, or how I feel about someone or a situation.
Yeah, and I think probably going to your coaching, it's asking those questions. Why do I feel that way? What about this is making me feel uncomfortable? And actually taking the time to assess that. I think a lot of us, especially I know I did, all I will say for me, I will not say a lot of us. For me, I know when I got into this community, I felt like I had to do stuff. And I just had to do it. I had no idea what I was doing. And there was a time I was wiring money and I told my husband, I was like, I don't think I should be doing this. But I did because I felt obligated because I'm like you. I felt like I already promised this money. I'm very loyal. I don't want to go back on my word, but I didn't listen to my gut. And those are powerful things. And I love that you said that. And I think taking that second to just ask yourself, why? Why do I feel that way? That is a game changer and will help you stay true to who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't said it better myself. Oh, I thought of a fun fact that
Oh,
some people don't know about me.
okay.
My love language is sarcasm. And
With
so
sarcasm.
it is. It is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you find me being sarcastic with you, or I'm roasting you, or that means that I really am liking your energy, and that, that's my way of, growing a friendship.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. All right. Aaron, this has been fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better interview, a better evening for myself. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend time with us here. I appreciate you. And we've got lots more to talk about. So I think we will bring you back on sometime in the future and do part two. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a great one.